Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, People iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. This is the highlight show of our program that aired today on the platform. We're live every afternoon, 1 till 4. We're the only independent sports radio show in this country. On this podcast, you're going to hear from Justin Marshall, back on deck for the first time in 2024. His reflections on Joe Schmidt being appointed Wallaby coach. What can he possibly achieve over the next couple of years? Justin's thoughts on Razor's first year in charge. And also, who's going to be the All Blacks 9 and 10 combo this year? Peter FitzSimons for an Aussie reaction to that Schmidt appointment. HK Wong as we talk NFL. Hakon Wong out of New York. The divisional round complete. We now know the final 4 teams in the NFL. LBP with TMG. Matt Gunn joining us from Twizel as he always does. And a big moan Monday where I just gotta put this narrative up on the dartboard and send a bullseye straight through the BS that it is about somehow it's our responsibility to make Australian rugby good, and somehow it's better for the All Blacks if the Wallabies are. What a load of rubbish. As always, we begin the show. Tablets in hand, I say gather my flock, and we always find out on Monday what we've learned from the weekend sport. Let us go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What do we learn over the weekend? Many, many things. As a matter of fact, in no particular order, Joe Schmidt is the new Wallabies coach, which is great news for Australian rugby. The man is a very good coach. He's proven he is successful. We all know that. But the truth also is that him coaching the Wallabies in international rugby is a bit like if he was given the job to coach the Highlanders in the upcoming Super Comp. He might be an amazing coach, but does he have the players available? If Joe Schmidt got that job, would the Highlanders win the Super Comp? No, they wouldn't. Not with that current squad. And unless Australia can produce in the next 2 years or so another 20-plus international class players, not sure he can or will get any better results out of that cattle than Dave Rennie did. We know that the Phoenix got lucky, and good for them, because in any sports league anywhere in the world, you need luck. You need the ball to bounce right for you every now and again. It was a soft penalty to save a point versus the victory. Let's just all be honest about that. But when you're down to 10 men for the whole of the second half and you're 1-0 down at home in the 95th minute, you take every break going. Alex Rufer, nerves of steel, excellent spot kick, and a damn good point earned. And that's what it was. It was a point earned. We learned that the Black Caps are a really good T20 side. At home, in our conditions, against almost all opponents, especially Pakistan, who we beat easily 4-1 over the 5-match series. 3 of those, remember, played without our best player, Kane Williamson. And that's it. That's what we learned. Finn Allen is an absolute menace to drones and anyone in the crowd totally not watching the cricket. But in terms of what those results mean in June, when the World Cup starts in the Windies, they'll be forgotten quicker than Allen's innings on Friday. And if you didn't know, he was out for 8. We learned that the Breakers are hanging in there, which is what they have done all year. Good win away southeast Melbourne over the weekend. Now 9 and 12, 7th spot, one off the playoff spots, and just got to keep doing the same and keep doing the same. Friday against the Jack Jumpers, as Dory said in Finding Nemo, just keep winning, 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 just keep winning, winning, winning. We learned that the Silver Ferns are still a million miles away and a few dozen goals from getting close to the world champ Australian Diamonds. Nations Cup in London over the weekend, we were absolutely dicked, or the female equivalent thereof, by them. Beat Nigeria just this morning. It's a rebuilding phase, remember, for the Silver Ferns. It's a rebuilding phase. And finally, we learned that Israel Adesanya's next opponent in UFC will most likely be the new middleweight champ, Dricus du Plessis. DP outlasted the guy that beat Izzy last time out, Sean Strickland. He's calling out Israel Adesanya, wants to fight on African soil, saying that he is the only true African and that Israel's got to take the belt there. You'd think it is the next big fight for Dricus because this is the money spinner. And as a champ, he's going to get to choose, so look out for that. Izzy's next bout is going to be against the guy, South African, who's got a pretty big mouth.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Justin Marshall first up, though. Just a few minutes, lock in. Headlines. Include Tay-Tay in your headlines, please.
Yeah, well...
Because over the weekend we were debating, were we not, that if Kansas City win the chip, does she get a ring? Does she get a ring? Not a Super Bowl ring, but Travis proposes.
Well, that's what the topic of conversation was. Does she get a Super Bowl ring? And the answer is no. She's not on the team. And because of her, they've been worse this year. There is a Taylor Swift curse.
There's there?
I think there is.
Well,
Kardashian curse. This is the Gen Z curse. It's the Taylor Swift curse.
Who was Tony Romo's girlfriend when he was...
Jessica Simpson.
She absolutely cursed him when he was the QB for the Cowboys. Yep.
And there's another athlete who's been cursed by dating someone famous, but I'll get to that in a sec. I tell you what, he plays tennis. Anyway, first off, a bit of concern within Black Caps camp ahead of their test series against South Africa. That being around wicketkeeper Tom Blundell, who has been sidelined from the domestic 2020 competition this month with a hamstring injury. Gary Stead, the Black Caps coach, said this yesterday. There is a little bit of concern because he isn't back playing, so whether Blundell actually turns out for the series remains to be seen. How good he is if he does turn out also remains to be seen. So we'll all keep some eyes on that. Meanwhile, the Black Caps ended their 5-match 2020 series with defeat at the hands of Pakistan. They lost yesterday by 42 runs. 92 was all the Black Caps managed with the bat. Though they'd already won the series, so how much did it really matter? The Silver Ferns posted their first win of the Netball Nations Cup with a determined and disciplined 65-60 victory over a pretty strong Ugandan side. They're getting better, Uganda. This was in London this morning. The Silver Ferns, of course, losing their first match to Australia. 63-50 was the result. That was on, Sunday morning? Not a good performance.
Touchdown! Buffalo Bills.
Kiwi golfer Lydia Ko has made the perfect start to the new year with a 2-shot victory in the opening event at the HGV Tournament of Champions in Orlando, this on the LPGA Tour. The $367,000 New Zealand dollar first place prize money takes her career earnings past the $17 million mark, which would be, in New Zealand dollars, $27.75 million. Good job, Lydia. That's pretty good. Dricus du Plessis became the first South African UFC world champion with a split decision win over Sean Strickland in the middleweight division. The result sets the stage perfectly for a grudge match, you could call it a grudge match, against Kiwi Israel Adesanya, with the two having traded barbs across social media over the past year. Full steam ahead for the men's Black Sticks to the Paris Olympics. They've clinched their spot at the Paris Games after winning the third place playoff against Pakistan 3-2 at the last chance qualifying tournament in Oman. Rugby news, the trial of Wallabies player Kurtley Beale set to begin as he defends allegations he sexually assaulted a woman at an Eastern Sydney pub. Premier League, Liverpool put 4 past Bournemouth and maintained a clean sheet. Extending their points lead on top of the table to 5, ahead of Manchester City, Arsenal and Aston Villa, who are all sit tied on 43 points at the moment, Liverpool on 48. Sheffield United scored a late equaliser from the penalty spot to finish 2-2 with West Ham. Australian Open. Some winners yesterday include Novak Djokovic. I was about to say Rafael Nadal. Whoops. Novak Djokovic breezed past the Frenchman Manarino in straight sets. Andrei Rublev winning a very good match against Alex de Minaur. Quite entertaining. Yannick Sinner winning as well. Stefanos Tsitsipas, he lost. Now this guy, Stefanos Tsitsipas, was playing Grand Slam semi-finals and finals. Then he went public with a relationship with fellow tennis star Paula Badoza. And he's been rubbish since.
Really?
I don't think he's got him past the quarterfinals since. And they,
Isn't that why Rory McIlroy dropped Caroline Wozniacki? Because his form just went through the floor.
This is what happens when your mind's taken up by love,
you just
lust.
No, you just don't have the anger and the desire and the will and the testosterone anymore.
No, because you got told off by her this morning, and you're more worried about that.
Yeah, you're more concerned about that.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I didn't unload the dishwasher. She's not going to like that. Anyway, sorry, not to be generalising with.
Well, I was just thinking, you're probably just thinking, I mean, you've got other distractions which are more fun.
Yeah, you do.
You know?
Women's singles draw yesterday. Arina Sabalenka winning, Coco Gauff winning as well. Barbara Krejcikova today in action for the women. Victoria Azarenka. She's playing Elena Svitolina for the men. Notable names on court. Daniil Medvedev, Alexander Zverev, Martin's best friend Cam Norrie.
Cam's back!
Carlos Alcaraz as
This is his fourth match since that debilitating wrist injury, which caused him to withdraw suddenly from the ASP Classic.
Yeah.
He came down from 2 sets down the other day to win in 5. He's now playing the fourth round camp. Oh,
he's superhuman, I tell you what.
Incredible recovery.
Some live sport going on, mainly American sports. The Buffalo Bills have just scored a touchdown. They're up 10-3 on the Kansas City Chiefs in the last NFL divisional round matchup. Whoever wins goes and plays the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship game. In the NFC Championship game, we've got our two teams. The Detroit Lions beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're back in the NFC Championship for the first time in a very long time. You'd probably know the stat better than me, Martin. They will take on the San Francisco 49ers. NBA, a couple of games on today. For those who are interested, the Clippers earlier today beating the Nets. They are rolling the LA Clippers. The Nuggets ahead at halftime over the Wizards. The Magic up against the Heat in a Florida derby, you could call it. Boston Celtics playing the Houston Rockets. My Lakers later today taking on the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm taking a break from the Lakers. They are embarrassing the singlet right now. Absolutely embarrassing it. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin,
That is a disgusting act.
the platform.
Rugby, ladies and gentlemen. About time we started talking about our national game again. Justin Marshall with us, first time in 2024, 81 Test veteran of the All Blacks, the best analyst in this country without question, forthright in his opinions. He gives them. He speaketh the sense. We've got Joe Schmidt to talk about the Wallaby coaching appointment. Thoughts on Razor's first year in charge and who's going to be the All Blacks 9 and 10. Justin. Let's just first and foremost acknowledge the fact that we've all had a few weeks off, and hasn't it been glorious? Because this is what rugby really needs. You've got to take a break, don't you?
You do, but mate, I did find it really, I guess, intriguing when I saw that the All Blacks have already had a camp.
Yeah.
And that Scott Robertson's already had them in, and, you know, you just wonder whether or not those guys that went through that arduous Rugby World Cup had just mentally had enough time off, and they were all of a sudden then thrust into fitness testing. Now, you know when that's looming over you, and I've experienced this in my time, when they test you that early, and obviously you've got a new All Black coach, you don't want to let yourself down, so you don't ever really button off, because you don't want to go there and do a really crappy fitness test and be off the pace, because it's not a good look to the new coach. So, yeah, I was really interested that he had them in that quickly and wanted to find out a lot about them this soon in the season.
Same, and I'll add to that, you know, to call it an All Black squad, look, there are a bunch of All Blacks and guys that have played for the All Blacks, but when we haven't seen any rugby this year, it's difficult to say, hey, that is the All Blacks, isn't it? I would be hoping that Razor's first message to everyone is that here's the whiteboard, there's not a single name on it. I want you to start putting your names on it with your Super Rugby performances.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. And look, I guess sometimes it's nice, and you know, Razor is an astute coach, and obviously his success is very evident, and he has a manner and a way about him, and this may be formulating the structure that he wants to show any player that wants to play for him, that they have to front whenever he asks them to. But at the end of the day, the other way to do it would be to set out his requirements, you know, that these are the expectations of the scrum half fitness test wise. This is what my front row has been able to squat and bench press, and then they could have done that within their Super Rugby franchises. So, yeah, look, I'm sure there's some real method behind the madness of getting them in that early at that stage of the year when it's boiling hot, but time will tell how it plays out.
Before we get on to Joe Schmidt, Justin Marshall is with us. Yeah, let's just continue this theme while we're on it. What kind of changes do you think that he's going to make? Perhaps not to the personnel, because that'll all unfold in front of us, but just in terms of the way that the All Blacks play style-wise compared to with him in his tenure at the Crusaders.
See, I think you're on point already, Marty, which is good to see. Obviously, you haven't been buttoning off over the new year because, absolutely, mate. I don't think there's so much intrigue for me around who he's going to select. Yes, there'll be some players that may have been All Blacks in the past that won't be there. There'll be some new All Blacks. There's some players that he knows more about that he'll want in his mix. But all of that, and you're absolutely right, revolves around the type of game that he'll want the All Blacks to play and the type of game he wants to take through to the next World Cup. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, the rest of the world in the last 8 years have caught up with us. And all of the results that we've seen is testament to that. So I know Razor, he's a good mate of mine, so sometimes it's hard to speak, but I know that he won't mind me saying he was a little frustrated at times with the type of style the All Blacks were playing. I expect him to make some tweaks and some changes and to select certain players around that game plan. I expect us to see a lot more ball in play, a lot more tempo in the way that the All Blacks play, and certainly some innovation away from too much pod work. So, you know, you never know. There'll be obviously other coaches that'll have input. He's got a good coaching group, but I think you're on point with what you said. I think we will see a real enhancement of the way the All Blacks have been playing particularly in the last 4 years when he gets a hold of them and brings his type of pattern to the ballpark.
All right, before we get on to Joe Schmidt then finally, 9 and 10, who do you think is going to be starting the very first test for the All Blacks this year? Who are your 9 and 10? If you had to pick them right now, injuries, obviously, well, everyone is available and fit and ready.
Well, I'm really intrigued about who's going to come into the mix. Now, obviously, Beauden Barrett will be done with his sabbatical, so he'll come back into the mix. But equally, I was thinking about TJ Perenara. Now, where does he sit in the thought process now that Aaron Smith is gone? I don't know if you've seen lately some of the training work that he's been putting out, but I tell you what, mate, I've not seen him in better nick. He is determined, obviously, to fight his way back into, first of all, the Hurricane side, because he's got to get rid of Roygaard out of the starting spot, and then equally into the All Blacks. So, look, a brief answer to your question is I'm not sure about the 9 because I'm not entirely convinced that I know what Ray's is going to do, but I think Cam Roygaard and Finlay Christie didn't do anything wrong at the Rugby World Cup, so they'd be the 2 front runners, but I wouldn't dismiss TJ. And then how's Faleo Fakatava's off-season gone?
Yeah, good
really
point.
interested in that. And then obviously the only one you throw in the mix if Bowden's not there, you have to think about Damien McKenzie. He's made a statement. He wants that jersey. He wants to play there, and he wants to play there for the All Blacks. He's said it himself. He's challenged himself. He has to go out there in front in that jersey now and, most importantly, be consistent.
Which is different from playing Super Rugby, playing All Black Rugby as well. Let's turn our attention to Joe Schmidt then. I said at the beginning of the program, look, to me, I applaud Australia doing this. Look, he's a brilliant coach. We know all of that. But I feel like right now, it's a bit like giving him the Highlanders coaching job. And no disrespect to the Highlanders, because I know Dave Dillon well, and I really like Clark as well. But if Joe Schmidt was today put in charge of the Highlanders, we'd all be going, oh, that's a great appointment. But it doesn't mean the Highlanders are going to win Super Rugby. And I think that's the best analogy to draw. It's a great appointment, Australian rugby, but you've still got to find a better squad than what you've got. So how does he do that?
Yeah, and how does he balance out something that he's never had to think about before, which is the Australians' selection policy for players outside of Australia? How does he look at that in the way that he wants to build a team? Does he do that from within Australia and go, look, we get these guys coming back, yes, they're world-class players, but they've been out of the system, they've been out of Super Rugby, they're slightly out of sorts of the way we want to play? Or does he go, you know what, I need to try and see if I can increase the amount of players we can grab? Do I approach the Australian Rugby Union and go, you know what, I want to bring players back that have played 40 tests or more, rather than the 75, I think it is. I'm really interested to see what pathway he goes down that selection-wise, because, otherwise he's having to pick from probably most of the players that we've seen in the last couple of years, and that's not brought up any new superstars. So a real challenge there. And probably the only other thing when I've been thinking about it, and you're going to ask me about Joe Schmidt, is any good coaching team in the world at the moment is a coaching team. They're not just about the head coach. And I think we saw that with Ian Foster. Ultimately, when his neck was on the line and they weren't playing well as a team, let's think back to what happened. He had to change his coaching setup. He got Jason Ryan in, and he brought Joe Schmidt in because what he had wasn't working.
Yeah.
So the key for me is, who does John Schmidt trust? Who does he get around him? Is it more New Zealanders? Or is he being asked by Australian rugby, right, well, we'll allow New Zealand to coach us, but you have to have a Stephen Larkham or a whatever come into the mix. So that, to me, is really interesting too. How much control does he have over who's going to be his assistant coaches?
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Moan. I'm moaning sick all the time. Oh, yeah. I'm going to moan on all right. Joe Schmidt is the new Wallaby coach. That's good. Well done, Aussie. You got a diamond there. My beef is with this continuous BS media narrative around the appointment that it's so goddamn important for us that the Australian team has to be strong. What utter nonsense. Who for? Not us. Them, sure. But I don't give a rat's about the Wallaby team, and I never have. It's such a flawed argument. So what if they're good, bad, or utter bollocks? We play them in 2 tests a year, and I want to pants them in both of those. What's more important for New Zealand rugby, for the All Blacks, much more important in fact, is reinvigorating Super Rugby, getting that competition back to being the best professional domestic competition in the world, which it no longer is. It's far from it. It's a 4th division competition at the moment. But Super Rugby is what prepares our All Blacks for international rugby. 2 tests versus Australia are part of that. Super Rugby being strong means our players would go back to having the best combative preparation we can give them for the international calendar. Now, indirectly, yes, that would also help every layer of Australian rugby, but we owe them nothing. And we need to stop this bleating heart, utter rubbish about helping them get better, and it's so important. We are not the best team in the world. Say that out loud. Every layer of New Zealand rugby. We are not the best team in the world. We haven't been for 5 years. The same group of players has lost consecutive World Cups, has created every unwanted All Black record there is, losing to Ireland at home, losing to Argentina at home, biggest defeat ever against South Africa. So stuff Aussie. Get lost, Wallabies. Who cares about you? We have more than enough problems of our own to worry about, and those need fixing first.
Devlin,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
the platform.
NFL, divisional round up and done. We are down to the final 4 now. The AFC Championship Conference final next weekend, the NFC as well. When I say next weekend, they're both games Monday here in New Zealand. Our man is HK Wong at FB Garbage Time. Football Garbage Time is his podcast. He's a Bears fan. He joins us out of New York. Let's look yesterday before we look at today. And we had a couple of matches where lots of talking points emerging from. Ravens over Texans 34-10. It was 10-all at half-time, and then Lamar took charge. And then a brilliant game for the neutrals between the 49ers and the Packers. Can we say that having the week off, look, it worked, in the end it didn't handicap either of those teams, but both of them were really slow to get going, and can we blame that week off for it, the top seeds?
Well, I certainly think that's part of it, but the Ravens are kind of known as that team that makes adjustments during the half, so I'm not totally thinking that actually hit them. And they really stayed engaged during their week off. I mean, they did learn their lesson that, of course, several years ago, there was a lot of agita over the fact that they lost 4 years ago after sitting out that first, getting that bye week and then losing to Tennessee. So that's something that they wanted to make sure they were not going to be rusty. I think I leave that to the Ravens and coaching. That's the way usually they do it. They kind of go up with a game plan. It's kind of more generic and vanilla first half, and they make adjustments at the half. But the 49ers certainly did look rusty, and so did Brock Purdy. So, yeah, I absolutely think it infected them in a bad way.
HK, does it in Buffalo, by the way, people, first and goal here. They're down by 3. They're looking to actually take the lead again. They should get a field goal and level it at least out of this. We'll get onto that in a second. Did that tell you enough about Brock Purdy that maybe he isn't the guy that can lead the star-studded 49ers team all the way?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think the thing is that he had a short memory. There are some times there where he made some bad decisions that almost cost him. Early in the game, he almost had a turnover that could have been a pick six. It luckily was not, and he managed to overcome that with a perfect final drive. Of course, the real story here is that Christian McCaffrey basically put the 49ers on his back. I mean, he had 128 total yards and 2 touchdowns and really made that happen. So at the end of the day, Brock Purdy is going to be good enough. He's still young. Let's keep in mind, he hasn't played a lot. And I think that people kind of put on him that he should be ready for this. He's been there before, but he wasn't. Remember last year in the NFC Championship game, he was injured. He did not play that game. So, he had some experience, yes, but this is only his second season here and his first full season. So let's not put too much on him. In fact, every other team in the divisional playoffs has a quarterback selected in the first round of the draft, except for Brock Purdy. So give him a little bit of credit, and I think he'll get warmed up.
He is Mr. Irrelevant. We're going to mention that again. The last guy that gets taken in the draft, people, gets the beautiful title of being called Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Mr. Irrelevant. So he was the very final pick in that draft. He has got, as I said, a star-studded lineup, but no Debo, which really did cost him. Look, that Green Bay Packers side, damn, they got close. Were they playing above their own level, or is that the future that we're looking at, that is a really good team?
No, I think the Packers are actually for real. And I hate to say that because, as you know, being a Bears fan, I hate the Packers. But they are legit. I mean, they started their first 3 straight drives in the red zone. They only came away with 6 points, and they had a failed 4th down conversion in their 3rd attempt in the red zone. But they were the first team in 20 years to reach the red zone on their first 3 drives of a playoff game without getting a touchdown.
Great stat.
So that's just experience, I mean, they got the raw talent there. Jordan Love is making great throws in tight corners, and he can make anybody catch the ball, right? Remember, last week we talked about this. Romeo Doubs was a nobody after week 4 or 5. He became the man in the wild card game. And as far as Jordan Love is concerned, it doesn't matter if it's Tucker Kraft or Luke Musgrave, any tight end will do. So I think at the end of the day, this is a legit team. They have a lot of growing to do. They are the youngest team in the NFL by average age. So they have a lot of growing to do. But that tells me they have the raw talent. They just don't have the experience yet to finish off.
HK Dub with us. 49ers beat the Packers then, and they will host in the NFC Conference Championship final game the Detroit Lions, who took care of business against the Buccaneers. You kind of got the feeling that last week was the banana skin for them against the Rams. They hadn't won a playoff game in 30-something years. And so to win that game, how important was that win to get this win?
Oh, certainly. It was a huge win. I mean, they got to get the monkey off their back. I mean, everyone knows that they had not won a playoff game in 32 years. And by winning that game, they put them in a situation to win, to break even more franchise, making even more franchise history by going to the NFC Championship for the first time in 32 years. And that's only the second time in franchise history. And of course, winning 2 playoff games at home for the first time ever. Or actually winning 2 playoff games ever. Not even talking about at home for the first time since 1957. We said. And the time they did that, the Super Bowl didn't exist yet. That was a decade before the Super Bowl even existed. So that was a huge for them to get it off their back. You could tell they were playing with confidence today. Baker Mayfield, he had his opportunity to come back there, but those Lions, they had the 4th worst pass defense in the league, but they managed to get 4 sacks on Baker today for minus 30 yards. That is incredible, plus 2 INTs, one of which was sealed the deal at the end of the game by Derek Barnes. So, they stepped up when they need to, and that is a huge, huge thing that they have to get from confidence. But they have a big game next week. And it'll be interesting to see what they do, because they won't be at home. They'll be on the road, and the 49ers are a different type of team.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. When the bell, that reminds us to move quickly on to the next one. We've got a number of topics to cover. Joe Schmidt, great decision for Oz, but what can he really achieve in the 2 years that he's got, Lachlan? The Phoenix so-called fans trying to pick fights with the Melbourne crowd that was at the Cake Tin on Friday night. The NFL, who you got after what you saw from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens yesterday? Are they now your overwhelming favourites? Strickland versus Duplessis, was it the right result? And is Israel going to fight Duplessis next? Do you believe that will happen? Black Sticks versus Pakistan, cock-a-doodle-doo. We've got a goal, 2 minutes before full time. It means that our men are going to be representing New Zealand in hockey at the Olympics. Would have been pretty miserable if both the men and women had missed out. I don't know. I don't know whether you like, the hockey ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to the Olympics, I love our men's and women's hockey teams. Manny Pacquiao to fight Floyd Mayweather. I'm not even interested in talking about the fact I'm not interested. Let's kick it off with Joe Schmidt, shall we? You've heard the quotes if you're listening to the program from the start of the show from 1 o'clock from the press conference yesterday. I like this guy. Every interaction we've had with him, Lachlan, I like him. He keeps to himself, keeps pretty closed book, doesn't do a lot of media interviews or anything like that. He speaks the sense. I get the impression that he's not really interested in being there for 4 years because he knows the poison chalice that it is. What can he do that Robbie Deans and Dave Rennie couldn't? And I'll go back to my original point, which I made at the start of the show, is unless from somewhere there is another 15 to 20 Australian players that are international class and quality, and they can find those guys in the next 2 years, then Joe Schmidt will be out of a job after the Lions tour, and he'll be grateful that he is. The problem Australian rugby has is the problem that it's had for the last 2 decades. It don't matter who the coach is. They're not picking the best athletes on that island. It's AFL, it's NRL. I mean, that's where the big beefy boys go. And then from there, then you've got cricket, then you've got swimming, then you've got football. The posh private school boys play rugby. They're not going to attract a hell of a lot of people coming over from the NRL. I can't see that. Swa'ali'i is one, but is he going to make a huge difference to the Wallabies? No, he's not. So realistically, look, it's a great appointment for Australia in that this guy's a really good coach, but what can he achieve in the next 2 years?
I guess the same stuff that the last couple of coaches have tried to achieve, and it's to resurrect Australian rugby.
Well, define that then. What does that mean?
Look,
what does that mean? Beating the All Blacks in a test?
No, it means.
Does that mean winning the Bledisloe Cup?
building the game back up from the ground up, if that makes sense. Obviously, you need to make sure you have your administrative levels sound and well, but I mean, making sure that you've got the right pathways, making sure that it's a sport
But
where
is
you're
that his
increasing...
responsibility? Was his responsibility?
Look, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but that was, at least, I wouldn't say the responsibility, but that was something that Eddie Jones really was trying to take care of.
The answer is not to bring back Michael Hooper and Quade Cooper. That's not what the answer.
I don't really get it because I don't think a coach is going to turn up and make things better anyway. Like, I just don't know what the answer is for Australia. I guess the best thing I think they could have done was just to put in an Australian in that role. This is where someone like Stephen Larkin would have been great. Someone who's experienced the golden age, more or less, of Australian rugby and probably actually feels hurt at how rubbish they are, and they can turn up and at least turn the national team around, and maybe there's some good flow and effects from that. I don't know if Joe Schmidt does that. He's a good coach, but I don't like the answers. I don't think the answer is to bring in a Kiwi to help Australian rugby. I don't know. It's a strange move, but Australian rugby have been making strange moves for a decade, and I think they're so far down, they're so deep into this pit that you're not getting out of it in the next 10 years.
Do you agree with me that it's not our business to help Australian rugby and to tell Australian rugby that they need help and that we
need to worry about ourselves.
We aren't the best team in the world. Keep saying it out loud until our players get it through their heads and stop pretending that they are the best team in the world, because we're not.
And it's not like the governing body's making money. Like there are failures in the high performance and in the administrative level within New Zealand rugby.
New Zealand rugby. Look, let's just get the Super Rugby comp back to a position where, we're not embarrassed about it, which we are at the moment. It's not as good as the French top 14. It's not as good as the English Premiership. It's not as good as the URC. It's not as good as the Champions League in England. It's about the 5th best provincial competition in the world. And that's what prepares our All Blacks. Let's just concentrate on getting that right, shall we? And first and foremost, as we were saying to Justin an hour or so ago, get our players bloody playing in it. Stop the silly sabbatical nonsense and get our best players fronting up week after week so that the All Black coach can look at them under stress, under load, under pressure, and pick our best actually battle-hardened by the time they pull that All Black jersey on. Oh, Bunny Wunny's gone to the door, mate. You know what that means? That means he wants tiddles. But we're both on air. How can we get out of here to take him out to Toy Toy? I've got the puppy in with me at work. I know. Look, I can't do anything, mate. I can't do anything. If he goes on the floor, it's your responsibility, Lachlan. You're going to mop it up.
It's your dog. It's not mine.
I'm on here. I'm talking.
Hey, Presley. His name is Presley. Hey, Presley, you're the king, baby. You're the king, baby. Hey, you're the king.
I wanted to get two. I wanted to call one the Colonel. Presley and the Colonel.
Yeah, but you can't handle two new dogs.
No, I can't handle two. Anyway, the Phoenix. Great result for the team. We went to the pub to watch this on Friday night. I thought that Melbourne victory were a much better side, but we're down to 10 men for that second half. We'll talk to Fred de Jong about this in a wee while. But what went on at the end of the game is absolutely disgraceful. And whoever went to that game thinking or pretending to be a Phoenix fan or pretending to be a football fan or a sports fan and thinking it's somehow right to then go confront and assault supporters of the other team, you need to be put in an enclosed space. And we'll rustle up a few of the old crew from London who were actual football thugs and hooligans who will actually explain to you the realities of this. Because that was pathetic in my mind. And I hope that David Dome and the Phoenix do everything they can to root these people out and never, ever, ever let them back into another game in Wellington again.
Yep. Thoroughly agree. They're not fans if they're doing that.
No, you're cowards is what you are.
And it's really strange. It's not something I ever thought would actually happen at a Phoenix game.
The Phoenix fans are bloody good fans. I mean, I like the chanting, the jip and everything else, but these, what kind of morons are you? These are mums and dads and fat guys with a couple of pints on board supporting Melbourne. They've got every right to be in that stadium supporting their team.
Yeah, it's not like English football where you said there's an inbred hooliganism of sorts that spurs on this sort of behaviour sometimes. It's not like that at all here.
No,
like,
it's
our
just
fans just don't behave that way. Our rugby fans might, or our league fans might sometimes, but not our football fans.
No, it's
just terrible.
He keeps going back to the door, doesn't he?
I'll take him out soon.
Okay. Strickland versus Duplessis, right result? You've had a look at the highlights? I mean, I don't know, mate. I don't know I can't decide.
No,
well, I just go with what Angove tells me and what the other experts say about it. So.
And I saw some things saying that Strickland got robbed, but this was on Twitter and...
Well, because if you're a Strickland fan, you're going to say that, because any decision in boxing which ends up being a split decision means that even the judges can't agree on who won the fight.
Yeah, but this one was a split decision where two of the judges went with Yeah.
Du Plessis and one Mr.
2 overalls, 1. I mean,
Well, yeah, okay, well, that's democracy, except in New Zealand, isn't it?
yeah. No, well, because if that happens, then we ask an old man, who's been in Parliament for how many decades, who do you think should be the new government,
that's right.
Winston?
Yeah. Israel Adesanya, it looks as though he's going to fight Du Plessis. This is a fight that everyone wants to see, isn't it?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that these two guys are calling each other out already. I mean, it all adds to it. It's all the theatre of it,
Yeah, it's a bit, I don't know, the theatre of it is far more brash and nasty than boxing theatre, if you will, but I guess that's UFC. The only thing I do like about the UFC, and boxing's a bit like this as well, I guess, I like it when you got one guy fighting one guy, and let's say he's got the belt and he wins. Then one guy beats him, but then the guy comes back to beat that guy, and then there's a third guy who all of a sudden's the main contender, and then he beats the best, and then he gets beaten by the... I kind of like that.
Now we got a narrative. Now we got a story. Black Six versus Pakistan. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Well done. I mean, thank God that's happened. I don't think we have to say much more about that.
Relief. So congratulations. Just good. You did your job. Thank you.
Aussie Open. Novak yesterday was just imperious, wasn't he? 6-love, 6-love, 6-3 that he won.
Yeah.
I'm calling it Coco Sabalenka final, unless they're on the same side of the draw. I haven't checked that. Dave Worsley will talk about that with us. Finally, Black Caps versus Pakistan. We lost the 5th one day. Does it matter?
No.
Does it matter?
We could have lost the 4th and the 5th and it wouldn't have mattered.
No, because we won the series.
Yeah, I'm not bothered.
And
all
we
I care about
won
is the
3 of
test
them without Kane. Yeah, same.
I care about our tests.
Yeah.
And I care about our World Cups.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
Yeah.
So if we win the T20 series, well, yeah, great.
Lord Peter FitzSimons, former Wallaby, very well-respected journalist, author, columnist out of Sydney. This is the 3rd time that the Wallabies have tried a New Zealand coach. Robbie Deans, brilliant coach. That didn't work. Dave Rennie, brilliant coach. That didn't work. Now Joe Schmidt. Well, he's proved that he can with Ireland. Can he convert the Wallabies? And why didn't you go for an Aussie guy, Fitz? Well, you've got a great coach, but you've had a great coach in Dave Rennie, and you had a great coach in Robbie Deans, and now you've got another great New Zealand coach in Joe Schmidt. The key question for me is, and there is doubt in my voice, as there should be, because I think this is like giving Joe Schmidt the Highlanders job. Yes, he's a brilliant coach, but if he was coach of the Highlanders right now, are they going to win the Super Rugby competition? The answer is no, and the reason for that is because they don't have a good enough squad. So where in the next 2 years is he going to find 15 to 20 players that he needs to bolster your ranks? Where are these players exactly?
So this is what you think, am I right? This is what
I think.
Have you mistaken me for somebody who cares what you think?
There is always that, Peter, but the other thing is I also want to establish early this absolute BS rot media diatribe and painting picture of, it's New Zealand needs Australian rugby to be strong. We don't care. I mean, can I say that loud and clear? We don't care how good or not you are. 180 minutes against you twice a year makes zero difference to how good we are.
Marty, you do need us because otherwise it's gonna end up like the cricket. That there's only three countries that count in the cricket, with an honourable mention to New Zealand. Right now, you got India, England, and Australia for Test cricket, and then sometimes New Zealand. We want you to be strong at cricket because it gets a bit grim playing India and only getting interested in Test cricket when there's India on and England on, and we do get interested. But right now, if it's West Indies, it's a waste of time.
Totally.
If it's Pakistan, it's a waste of time.
Totally.
If it's South Africa, it's a waste of time. So you do need us because we're brothers, we're sisters, we're cousins, and we want to be strong. And in terms of Mr. Schmidt, it's very interesting. I mean, I put this out the other day. You know that obesity drug Ozempic. I'm sure people are talking about it in New Zealand as they're talking about it in Australia. It's 25% of the GDP, the gross domestic product of Denmark. 25%. If you look up for New Zealand exporting rugby coaches, you're up to 23%. I mean, they're everywhere. Everywhere I look, I can't spit over my shoulder in Australia without hitting a famous Kiwi rugby coach right in the eye. And, with Joe Schmidt, I mean, prima facie, he's what we need because we had Eddie Jones, as you know, he was half well, he was a combination basically of a human cattle prod, a stick of dynamite, and he was a disruptor. And the whole thing, to mix up my metaphors, just blew up. The whole thing just blew up in our face and damn nigh destroyed Australian rugby, at least for that year. And what we hear about Joe Schmidt, and he's not well known in Australia at all, but what we hear is that he's Bob the Builder. He can build it, that he can fix it. He's a guy that basically starts to put things together a la Dave Rennie. I must say he does sound like a Dave Rennie kind of bloke, which is, I don't think, well, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, is Joe Schmidt much of a media presence?
No, zero. Less than zero. That press conference at his announcement is the last time that you'll hear from him, unless it is the obligatory post-match one, mate. He just doesn't do the media. Doesn't do it.
Yeah. Well, Dave Rennie didn't do much media, and it may be that Dave Rennie did do media, but nobody paid attention. He just seemed like a nice bloke who was doing a competent job. Whereas Eddie Jones, as you know, I mean, geez, you'd mark him down for rugby coaching. From press conferences, he was fantastic for selling newspapers as good as they come. Hold the front page. I mean, you're going to be second up on the news. Eddie Jones gave brilliant press conferences. Sadly, they were press conferences about how Australian rugby was stinking up the joint. But what we do need, I mean, the point that Eddie Jones made is, bar the bounce of the ball against Fiji, like they only lost to Fiji by a smidgen, and had it bounced a different way, Australian rugby might have won. That there are elements in Australian rugby, if you start to put them all together, that can be good. And I suspect what Schmidt will do will be, the first thing is to bring back some experience. I don't know if Michael Hooper will make the team again. I don't know if he's available again. But clearly, taking the youngest squad of the 2020 World Cup teams, to take the youngest squad of the lot, simply did not work. We need people back there who, when it all hits the fan, have been there before. In fact, I had lunch with John Eales on last Thursday. We were talking about that fantastic match. You might remember, I think 2001, 2002, when the Wallabies were down 24 points to
2000
nil
it was,
after 8 minutes. But I was talking to John about, well, what did you do when you were down 24-0 after 8 minutes? And the answer was, we went to set pieces. We went to not set pieces as in scrums and lineouts, but they had moves and manoeuvres that they'd practiced that they knew would work. They go back to stable things, experienced things, structural things that they knew would work, and the game started to sort itself out. Now, when that happened against Wales and against Fiji in the World Cup for the Wallabies, they couldn't, behind the goalpost, go to move B52, backman turner overdrive, J4. Because, you guys that hadn't met before, they didn't know each other.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Time to play your favourite game, Lachlan.
We need to talk.
It's not that.
We need to talk.
It's called What is More Chance of Happening?
Next!
I present two scenarios and you tell me which of the two is more chance of happening. Joe Schmidt is still the Wallabies coach come the 2027 Rugby World Cup, or Buffalo wins a Super Bowl in your lifetime. What is more chance of happening?
Repeat the first one again.
Joe Schmidt is still the Wallabies coach come the 2027 Rugby World Cup.
What's got more chance of happening?
Or Buffalo wins a Super Bowl in your lifetime. Now, you're going to live for probably another 60 years. Let's just say 60 years till you're 85 or 86, right? What is more chance of happening?
So the Bills have been around for about 80-something years, and they haven't won one. They've lost 4 Super Bowls. Did they go to a Super Bowl before 1990?
No.
I'd say there's more chance Joe Schmidt's staying as coach in 2027. And it's not because the Bills card, it's just more that I'd actually be surprised if he's not there in 2027.
Next!
I think that's a poorly run operation by the new blokes at the head of Rugby Australia if they let a coach walk or they get rid of a coach after just 2 years.
Look, and also, even his comments saying, they want to know whether or not I'm the right guy. By the way, look, it's like giving Razor the job for 2 years after Fozzie. Give it to him till the World Cup.
Yeah.
That's the cycle now in world rugby. The only thing that counts is the World Cup. We know that. Keep him there. What is more chance of happening? Schmidt is still the Wallabies coach when that rolls around, or Trent Bolt plays one of the tests versus Australia.
That's not happening. So Joe Schmidt, absolutely. There is more chance that he is the Wallabies
And
coach
there's no
in 2027.
chance of Joe being the coach. He's already said that, hasn't he?
Well, he said that if things aren't going very lovely and smoothly and people aren't dancing on rainbows and whatnot, then yeah, he'll step away. So that's why it's a 2-year deal by the sounds of it.
It's a hedge bet deal from Australian rugby. I think it's weak.
Now, if things are going seriously well, they're winning games, he seems to turn things around, at least for the Wallabies on field, then he's like, yeah, I'll stick around.
Okay, well, what's the barometer? Give me the barometer for the Wallabies. What does he have to do to keep that job for 4 years?
I remember Tim Horan, one of Wallabies' greatest ever players. Did he win 2 World Cups, Tim Horan?
Mm-hmm.
He was there for both, yeah. He said something along the lines of, when Eddie Jones became the coach, this time last year, by the way, that was our first day back on air last year, that a minimum is to have a Bledisloe Cup victory in about within 3 or 4 years, win the Lions tour and get to a World Cup semi-final, I think. I don't know if that was 2023 or 27.
That's a wish list, isn't it?
Well, are we going to give Joe Schmidt the same prerequisites to stay in the job? Or to, does he need to win a Bledisloe Cup within the next year or two? Does he definitely need to win that Lions series? I would think by the end of 2025, so next year, he would need to have taken back the Bledisloe Cup or to win the Lions series.
That's not going to happen. I think they're only 2 test series from now on, so he's got to beat the All Blacks twice in a year.
Yeah, but if he beats us here, I think they can get it. I mean, they haven't been far off beating us in New Zealand.
No, well, that's because our team has been average for 5 years.
Next!
What was more chance of happening? Joe Schmidt lasts in the Wallabies job till 2027, which is about 4 years longer than Eddie Jones lasted in it. Or the Phoenix management do track down those meatheads and issue them all live.
Oh, I hope that's got more chance of happening.
I hope so
too. So.
I don't know if they'll get them all.
No.
But by the sounds of it, they can identify a few. This is now up to all the Phoenix fans who are at that game on Friday night. If you know any of these guys, you got to out them.
Yep.
You're not being...
This is when it's good to be a grass.
You're not being a grass. You're not being a narc. You're actually doing the club and your fandom and the rest of the fans a huge favour. Because these aren't football fans. These are just drunken thugs is what they are. And they need to be called out. They need to be found out. And then they need to face the consequences.
Next!
What is more chance of happening? Joe is all go and stays in that Wallaby job till 2027. Or Tay, Trey, and KK go all the way and win the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in what? Would it be 6 years? So they got to go and beat the Ravens. Okay, let's just say Kansas go to Baltimore and beat the Ravens. What is more chance of happening?
Joe Schmidt's in the job in 2027.
You don't give them a chance next week.
No, I think the Ravens, they were scratching the first half yesterday, but they really found their groove in the second half. Their offense moved really well. They ate up yards.
Plus their defence is awesome. Their defence is a hell of a lot better than the Bills, and there was no defence in that game, and that was the
You're
problem.
asking Kansas City... No, this is a very good... The Kansas City Chiefs are a very good team. They have been for a number of years.
Very good team.
But this is the first time in a long... I think it's the first time they had a wild card game, wasn't it?
First time he's played a playoff game, Patrick Mahomes, away from home.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time they've actually... this year was the first time they actually played in the wild card weekend. So, I could be wrong, but I think so. And yeah, they've at home, but then on the road for back-to-back weeks in the playoffs, away to 2 really good teams and 2 really hard places to win. And next week it's going to be an even better team. And to be fair, they've only won today because the Bills have... come the fourth quarter, the Bills went for it twice on 4th down, converted one of them, and then missed a field goal. The kicker should have made.
44 yards, you got to get that.
Not that Kansas played bad, but they were bailed out a little bit.
LBP, let's be positive. Matt Gunn out of Twizel. Brand new coach for the Wallabies. You got a guy in the Aussie Open, Demon. He got knocked out last night, but he's been creating headlines over there as well. Plus... what's it like when you're stuck at home by yourself knowing that her and your daughter are on a shopping spree and you have no control over where they're going or how much they're spending, Matt? You've been on your own this weekend, pal. Tracy McKenzie away. What shopping? What are they doing?
She's away spending money buying things for the house. So
yeah,
you know how that'll go.
Well, that only means I just heard spending money. That's all I heard. Yeah. Okay.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm glad I'm not there. I don't have to agree with everything anyway, and I don't get a choice anyway. But nonetheless, it always makes me nervous.
Well, it should make you nervous, mate, because you're not there.
I know. But even if I am there, I still don't play a role.
No.
I get to decide. She showed me 2 paint colours the other day. Which one do you like most? I said whichever one you like, because I wouldn't actually pick green. You're not asking me which colour I want. You're asking me which colour I like that you want.
Yeah.
Which is actually different.
Well, that's completely different. Yeah. No, there's only one answer to that question. It's either you choose or you choose. There's no other answer to that question. There's no, because she's not hearing anything else. Otherwise, it's, well, why don't you do it?
Yeah. It's either mint green or slightly less mint green.
That's it.
Or minty mint green.
That's it, yeah. Kick it off with Joe Schmidt, because as good a coach he is, Matt, I began the show by asking this question. Justin Marshall, Peter FitzSimons on after that, saying, look, he's not the answer, and don't expect him to be the answer. Fundamentally, Australian rugby has got so many issues to deal with, but most importantly, in terms of that Wallaby side, he's got to find some players. He's got to find some international class players. And where are they coming from? You can't just appoint a coach and go, oh, great, he's now going to coach this bunch of guys into being the best team in the world. That's unrealistic.
Yeah, we're not going to be the best team in the world. I mean, we just want to be a competitive team. I was quite happy to read that he'd taken the job, and the reason is because I didn't think there was anyone in Australia that was going to be able to make a difference either. And I don't think we've got enough really experienced coaches to make a big enough difference. So hopefully something within his coaching style is able to transfer, which it did in Ireland. So, I mean, that's, I suppose, the shining light, the bright light that I can hopefully dream towards. But you're dead right. I mean, what we've seen over the last 18 months or 2 years is a group of players who can show moments of magic, but they just aren't good enough to maintain it, and certainly not good enough to win series. Only win moments in games. So they're at their lowest point ever. There will be some that say you should bring in an Australian, but I think the world's moved on from that. I mean, nobody really worries too much about that, I suppose, except the All Blacks and maybe South Africa. Anywhere else, these coaches are going. The other good news, Martin, is generally, and over the last decade or so, when New Zealand coaches take on other international teams, they do seem to go okay. They do seem to see some improvement. And the question is when Australia will have coaches good enough to do that, and when their coaching systems in terms of training coaches are good enough for them to be competing and taking those roles. So good on Schmitty. Schmitty, we're calling him. No Bledisloe since 2002 for Australia. He wants to see that series competitive. I reckon for him in the next 12 months, if he can achieve that, that'll be a massive step forward, because 2002, Martin, it's a long time ago, like the Bulldogs in 2004. You almost forget what success is like.
Let's be positive about the Australian Tennis Open. Brilliant tournament as always. But Demon, they call him the Demon, the last Aussie in the draw, the men's side of the draw. He gone now.
Yeah, devastated that he lost a little bit of focus and concentration in the fifth set last night. What I love about these kind of stories is how they become superstars in Australia.
Yep.
The Open tends to throw them up off and on over the years. And the Demon, what a great name.
I know,
the Demon.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
You know what I mean? Everybody rides that success. They pray for the best. He was very close to taking it that next step. And he'll have a bit of a legendary status now, and hopefully there's another young tennis player that might be able to do all right. You see the Come On kid.
Yeah, so the Come On. Yeah,
got his son in there in the juniors, and apparently that was a sold-out match. There were former Davis Cup players, there were former international players, former great tennis players, and an absolute packed audience for the young 15-year-old who walked out just like Dad with his hat on backwards, and basically he's a little clone off.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.